Kingston Town Administrator Keith Hickey with the latest edition of This Week in Kingston for the week ending October 25th, 2024. We've got an expanded program today for you, the second part of our discussion on the MBTA zoning. With me today is our town planner, Valerie Massard. Val, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
We're here to maybe talk in a little bit more detail than we did in our first show, where we talked in broad terms about what the MBTA zoning district was and what the requirements of it were or will be. And we've got some more details to share with people to assist you in trying to come up with a decision on whether or not you support it or not. So with that, we've got a couple of slides that we can show everybody to give people a sense of where the MBTA district is, the size of it, the number of dwelling units that need to be permitted in that area. Again, it's important, I think, to recognize we've identified the location of an MBTA zone, but as we get into this show, we'll try to emphasize to everybody, doesn't mean that the properties have to be built on. In fact, the properties that we've identified in our zone are already properties that have been built on and have successful commercial businesses on them already. So, we've got a slide up, Val. Maybe you can go over the business owners or the property owners that are in the proposed MBTA district, and people can maybe get a better sense of where they may be.
Yeah, so when we talk about the mall, we're talking about the Kingston collection, and it's important to recognize that that does not include Target, and it does not include Macy's. So when we were looking at this area, we really carved out the Target and its parking lot. We carved out Macy's and its parking lot because we want it to stay a mall, a destination for retail and experiential. So what we did include was the two ends of the mall, like from one end to the other, without the Target and the Macy's. And then we also included the apartment building that's there because that's 282 units in our favor. And like you said, the state has set a limit as how many we have to have, and it's 805 units that we have to have zoned for, not built, but zoned for. Right. There's 282 already taken care of. So we don't expect that everything's going to be turned into apartment buildings, like you said. The other businesses that this includes on the northern side of it, the northern side of the mall, is in our industrial park. Right. We have 2 storage facilities there. We have the Sullivan Brothers Toyota dealership. That's part of it is in this district. We have the awning company that's in this district. And then there's 2 other businesses that have been there for a long time that are doing really well, that are tenants in their buildings. And we've met with all the businesses. We've explained what we're doing. They have no issues with it. They aren't affected in a negative way. Right. And they haven't shown any interest in using it. But we're just creating that district. And interestingly enough, if I switch back to this new slide, shows the districts from a color point of view. Right. You can see a maroon line kind of around that. And I'll move the cursor. There's a maroon line around the sub-districts. And that maroon line is the mall's redevelopment overlay district. So it's actually smaller than the redevelopment overlay district that was already approved by town meeting a couple years back, which would have allowed for a hotel along with the apartment building. So it's not really a significant change from what's already been talked about up there at that location. Yeah,
I know that there was discussion, as you mentioned, 2 or 3 years ago, when the district was set up around the mall. There was an approval by town meeting to allow a hotel of some kind there in the future. The impression that I think we've been left with is that hotel is not in anybody's immediate plans to construct. Right. So.
And we know that the new owners of the mall have purchased the Macy's building. And we know that the Macy's is going to close. So it's important for us to keep in mind that something's going to happen up here. We just don't know what. In the meantime, we're looking at this as a possible incentive for some redevelopment there. But we've also picked this location for strategic things that'll benefit the town in terms of the existing infrastructure. We already have cut the trees down. We already have parking. We already have water and sewer available and tapped into the site. And we already have our exit ramp. It's right off the highway.
And we also have excuse me, we have, the T station, and part of the MBTA zoning obviously was driven by, the location of the MBTA stop and the need to have the MBTA district close to that stop.
Yeah, a lot of this is within a half-mile walk from the T station, which is the idea of trying to have the residences. So this will give us the opportunity to get infrastructure funding if we pass it to help improve the walkability from the existing apartment building to the train station. Right now, people are sort of walking a lot up and around the Sullivan Brothers, and
Right.
it'll be better in terms of those things. And it's away from existing residential,
Right.
other than that apartment complex.
Well, and you mentioned it earlier. I mean, I think it's important for people to recognize in a lot of communities that are having to deal with this. They're having to propose these district areas for MBTA in areas in town that have not been developed,
Right.
at least in part. In Kingston, we're fortunate that the mall right now is in a decline and hopefully a rebound in the near future. We've got development out there that has already become established. In the mall's case, they're looking to revitalize the area and repurpose the mall in some ways that we've yet to see. That helps this. But again, it's important for people to recognize, at least in my mind, that we have to identify roughly 50 acres of property for 805 units. It doesn't mean the units have to be built. It just means that we've identified the 50 acres that
Where it's zoned.
that would be zoned, that we would allow the 805 units.
And we have 282 already built.
Right.
And
So
the other thing about that is that the density, if you think of the Trammell Crow or the Point apartment complex now, that's actually at a higher density
right.
than what's proposed in either of these districts in terms of density. That's actually 10 units per acre more than what the state is saying. So we're looking at 15 units per acre density, which is much lower, whereas the Point is something closer to 28 units per acre.
Sure. So I mean, again,
More
some
spread
of
out.
it could be, apartment type buildings like you see there now. Some of them could be, detached or attached condominiums.
Right.
To your point, it doesn't need to be quite as dense as the apartment complexes have been now. And again, I think it's important. We just want to, I guess, reemphasize this information we're trying to provide to everybody isn't to sway you one way or another. It's really just to provide information to you. So if you are able to go to town meeting to deal with this important article and other articles in November, that you have a sense of what's some background, I guess, on the topic, on the warrant article itself. The warrant article is 12 pages. Of 8.5 by 14, so it's lengthy, it's detailed as it has to be, and again it's on our website now, along with some other information that Val has been posting on our website, and we're just trying to encourage people to try to be informed. We'll get into some of the impacts or the potential impacts to the community in a minute if this was not to be approved. But again, we're trying to provide you unbiased, factual information on why we've chosen the location we have, what the impacts may be to Kingston, and again, I think importantly to note that we have to provide the ability to get 805 units approved. It doesn't mean they're going to be built or even brought forward. It would mean that the commercial properties that are in place now would have to be redeveloped.
Right.
And again, I don't think either one of us are sitting here today saying that will never happen. But having occupied pieces of commercial property that are successful and established businesses already in Kingston reduces the risk, I guess I'd say, of that 805 units coming to fruition. Does it give the mall or the car dealerships or the other developers or property owners, another opportunity to redevelop their property if they wanted to? It absolutely does. But, you know, it doesn't mean they're going to.
Right.
So, again, we're not saying that the apartments will never be built. We're trying to address a location where they absolutely could be built if there was a desire to do so.
Yeah, the goal here is to bring the best possible option to the town when it makes its decision. And we were able to negotiate a waiver to get, you can see that circle through the districts that shows up on the slide. That's the half-mile radius. And the state gave us a waiver to help include them all and count those apartments, which helped us in terms of picking the right location. So we're just trying to pick the best fit for the town. If it's going to say, yes, we're going to continue along with this MBTA community's request and give you the best possible option to choose from.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, you know, the water, the sewer, a lot of the road network infrastructure, a lot of that stuff is already in place.
Exactly.
So you're not having to see a significant increase in demand for public services with regards to public utilities. So if the town of Kingston is being forced to at least bring this forward, you know, I think what we've brought forward for voter consideration, or you've brought forward with the planning board's help of voter consideration, is the absolute best case scenario for Kingston as far as impact to our services and you know, not impacting virgin land that hasn't been developed on. So it works well to meet the intent of the MBTA district. So maybe we can, if we could, just scroll to what's at risk if this doesn't get adopted in November at town meeting. What's at risk, and what the state has said is that communities who don't approve the MBTA zoning by December 31st of 2024 will lose their access to a significant amount of grant funding that the Commonwealth provides communities through either grants or competitive grant programs. Kingston, and we've tried to, Val has identified grants that the town of Kingston has gotten over, I would say, the last
10 years,
10 years, give or take, and there's a couple of big numbers. The town of Kingston received a $6 million mass work grant that deals with improving infrastructure. That money was granted to the town of Kingston to assist the development of Amazon, elevated routes, and the apartments at the mall, the existing apartments at the mall. We also, and that was, again, primarily water and sewer infrastructure expansion to those locations. We know that the water department will be proposing a new well. You'll see on the warrant in November, there's $1 million for doing the preliminary work on the property that the town acquired 6-7 months ago. I would expect a year and a half from now, in May of 27, if you can believe it, May of 26.
26 maybe.
You will see the construction cost for a new well. Obviously, we've talked off and on about the no new connections for water. We have reached our maximum capacity on what we can sell for water at this point, so there's a moratorium. It is really restricting our ability to work with interested parties to build a new house, up to building some sort of a commercial industrial building.
Right.
And that impact is going to start to be seen, in my mind, anyways, in the fiscal 26 through the fiscal 26 budget process. We, like most towns, are able to absorb some increased costs that we have to deal with regards to wages and benefits, utility costs. The cost of asphalt goes up. The cost of all of our supplies go up, just like they do at home. We can absorb some of that increase through new growth. Kingston had about $700,000 in new growth in fiscal 24. We're estimating in fiscal 2026 it's going to be down to $400,000, and a lot of that, frankly, is just because the value of properties continue to grow. It's not because of new building.
Oh, well, you'll notice too that out of that 8.28 million that we've received from the state in the last 10 years, over 2 million of that, roughly 2 million of that, went towards buying properties the town didn't want to see developed to help preserve open space.
Absolutely.
And, that's significant as well.
You know, I know 2 or 3 years ago there was a, you know, there was a real push to save property that was former Boy Scout property off of Winthrop Street.
Winthrop Street, yep.
And with the help and the assistance of the residents out there, the town was able to obtain a $400,000 grant to purchase that property and put a conservation restriction on it to keep that property in all likelihood in conservation oversight for forever.
Right.
We also received a $1.6 million municipal vulnerability planning grant, and that was to acquire a large cranberry bog. We thought we had a purchase and sale on, and the owner decided to move in a different direction and sell it to a private individual. So we aren't able to spend the $1.6 million grant money that we received. But again, what's important is the town heard the concerns of the community, saw the importance of trying to conserve and improve the water quality of the Jones River, and proactively through our conservation department went out and applied for I think a very challenging grant to obtain, and we were successful in obtaining $1.6 million for that. Yeah. Those types of things go away. And
yeah, what's happening is the state is slowly adding more and more of these grant programs to the list of grants you can't apply for if you don't pass MBTA zoning.
Right.
And even earlier this week, I was at a conference listening to one of the senior officials from the administration, and they said that they're actively going through that list now to add even more grants to the list of grants that we wouldn't be able to apply for. So from a staff perspective, from a town perspective, it's those options we'd have to either find infrastructure monies or find land preservation monies or even cleanup monies. Those options are going to be limited if we don't pass the MBTA Communities Initiative, the zoning that we have on the warrant. That's important for everybody to understand because it meets a lot of our goals. That $8 million goes a long way.
No question about it. And, you know, again, we've got a note at the bottom of the screen. We know that the water department is going to be trying to construct a new well in the next 2 or 3 years. The water commissioners have also mentioned the need for a new water storage tank, an additional water storage tank, to meet the current demands in areas where there's, you know, peak demand and fire flows and things of that nature. You know, $9.5 billion in today's dollars, probably more by the time it goes to town meeting. There's no guarantee on what type of grant money we'd get to offset the cost of those, but the reason for the new well and the storage tank really dovetails pretty nicely into the grant opportunities that are provided for projects like that. So. Again, no sense of, at this point, we aren't going to know what type of grant funding would be available to us to offset that $9.5 million, but feel pretty confident that there'd be something. So again, not trying to scare anybody, just trying to have people recognize or realize that if you turn this program down because you think that's in the best interest of the town, in your opinion, we respect that. Understand that there are capital projects that need to be done. The well, excuse me, and the water tank are current needs and are going to have to be brought forward, whether there's MBTA zoning or not, to allow the town to meet its needs and future demands, to allow us to continue to grow, to help keep the tax rate as affordable as we can. So. Just people need to understand that there are the state will be taking a big step back in trying to assist with infrastructure type projects to keep Kingston compliant with water quality needs, wastewater needs, things of that nature. And
As sea level rise comes up,
Yep.
being able to tackle those issues, flooding issues, and infrastructure. The Mass Works also covers road improvements. So some of those safety improvements we talked about with the selectmen a few months ago, the Mass Works would be a place for us to go if somebody came in and said, look, I want to redevelop in a world where we, say, did have water. We could work with them to improve the intersection if we were able to get towards this Mass Works
Sure.
incentive money. And another thing I think we haven't touched on that is a possible downside to not voting for it, and I think we should mention, is there's going to be penalties assessed against the town. We've watched what Milton's gone through.
Sure.
And they're in court at the Supreme Court right now with the Attorney General suing them. And that case hasn't been resolved. But there's legal costs and penalties that also are unappealing. But we just need to be aware. We want everybody to have all those things on the table. Those are other possible downsides to not approving it.
Yeah, no question. I mean, at the end of the day, the legislation that the state has forced on well over 100 communities is disheartening.
Yeah.
And very frustrating. And to have cookie cutter zoning be applied across the board to over 100 communities really doesn't serve any of the communities as well as they could. So to sit here and we want everybody to understand, as community leaders, we certainly are disappointed and discouraged that the Commonwealth has done this to the communities that have MBTA stops in them or budding communities that have MBTA stops. We don't like what they're doing, but we also understand there's some real negatives to not trying to comply with what's been forced upon us. So there will continue to be, I agree with you, there'll be continue to be additional grant opportunities that will be lumped into the grant opportunities that will no longer be eligible for without passage of this zoning. The state, unfortunately, holds a lot of the cards. I know there's been some discussion about trying to present some legislation to appeal the MBTA zoning. I don't know how much success they'll have in that. I mentioned last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting, to me, the cat's out of the bag to a certain extent. There's been dozens of communities, including Plymouth, that has approved the MBTA zone that has been brought forward to their town meeting. There are other communities that certainly have voted it down. The two communities that are being sued by the Commonwealth, Milton and the other was...
Forget the other.
The two communities, including Milton, they've had their fall town meeting. They don't plan on bringing it forward again, so that has triggered the Commonwealth to litigate.
Right.
As the December 31st deadline approaches, there's a lot of communities out there that will be considering this legislation, and I assume that when communities have their fall town meeting, if the legislation is turned down by the voters, then the list of communities that are being litigated against for not complying with this mandatory zoning will grow. And with that, potentially comes costs. And it's a very gray, fuzzy area. We don't know where that's going to go for us. So,
and I think I just want to add too that our previous tape that we did is on the planning department's website at the town, and we go into more detail about that law and what those requirements are. The other thing that's going to be coming up is on Monday night, this coming Monday, on the 28th, from 4 to 6 p.m., the planning board's going to hold an open house at Town Hall, and it's going to be a time for people to come in and ask more questions in person. I'll be there with these maps and be able to get into more detail if people want to do that.
sure.
And then the public hearing itself will be later that night around a little bit after 7 p.m. With the planning board. And again, that's another opportunity for people to come and ask questions. There will be another presentation done at that meeting to walk through all of this, the same information, because we want to just make sure we're giving everybody the opportunity to absorb what is a lot. When you just look at the paper product, it's hard to understand, but basically it just says that I have this zone, and if I'm a developer that wants to do it, and like we said, we don't have anyone knocking on our door,
Right.
but if they did show up, they would have the ability to either do a mixed use or show us something that contained housing. They can't do it without some component of housing. If they don't have housing, they can't use this at all. But like you said, it could be a couple townhouses, it could be condos, it could be a lot less dense than what we see if it were to come in. And it just says that they have the right to do that, and we would entertain that filing.
I'm glad you raised, Monday night. Monday night's the planning board meeting. As Val said, there's an informational meeting for anybody who wants to come by between 4 and 6. Val will be available. Just so the viewers are aware, the planning board after the public hearing will be voting whether they support the article or not. The town meeting warrant was posted today, so it's not going to reflect the planning board's vote. But in the town meeting handout that we put together and hand out at town meeting, it will reflect the planning board's vote in that. We'll get that published on our website as well, probably sometime before the 1st of November. But the Board of Selectmen at their October 22nd meeting, they voted on the MBTA zoning. They voted to not support the MBTA zoning, 2 votes to 3, so it was not supported by somewhat of a split vote. So that's where they've landed on this. The planning board will take an independent vote on Monday night.
And we encourage people to come out because it's not like other zoning. The state is so proactive to try to provide housing that this is 51% vote. Zoning changes in the past have been a 2/3 vote. So the more people that come to town meeting and articulate their thoughts, the more likelihood that we'll have the outcome that the town wants.
Yeah, it's important. This is a really important issue that is going to really impact the community moving forward. So
the town meeting is November 19th at 7 p.m.
Yep, in the intermediate school auditorium. And for those who are looking for a reason not to go, this is article number 1. So shortly after 7 o'clock, the moderator will open town meeting, and this will be the first article on the warrant for discussion. I expect a fairly lengthy discussion, which is great. And hopefully people have had an opportunity again to watch some of the shows we've done and some of the information Val's put on our website, so they can be prepared to ask some really, really tough questions on the 19th. So again, between now and November 19th, Val is our expert on this. Her phone number, her email address is on our website. If you want to reach out individually or pick up the phone, send an email, we would love to respond to you and provide you answers to whatever questions you have. We understand this is an emotional issue and a significant issue for the community to have to undertake, and I think we've done everything we can at this point to make it as palatable as possible if the community was to support it. Any last words?
No, I appreciate having the opportunity to come on and talk about it some more.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, again, we hoped we didn't. We hope you provide as much information as you need. Again, there's plenty of information on our website, and we're always available for phone calls, emails, or if people want to make an appointment, come in and have a conversation. We'd love to talk to you. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you are able to attend the special town meeting in November. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out before then. Thanks very much for watching, and have a great day.